The Caldwell estate was less a house and more a small kingdom, sprawling across acres of manicured lawns in the United States. Its gates, tall and wrought iron, opened onto a winding driveway that led to a mansion that seemed to breathe money. Every stone, every towering window, every sculpted bush screamed luxury. Inside, marble floors stretched like frozen rivers, reflecting the sparkle of crystal chandeliers that hung like frozen waterfalls from impossibly high ceilings. It was a place where wealth wasn't just displayed. It was the very air you breathed, thick and perfumed, creating a stark, almost suffocating contrast to the world outside those imposing gates. At the heart of this opulent world lived Mr. Caldwell, a billionaire whose presence was as grand and as distant as the mansion itself. He was a man of immense power, rarely seen, often heard about, and almost universally respected in the circles that mattered. But within his own home, his influence felt more like a shadow, long and cool. His daughter, Tiffany, was the sun in this shadow, though a sun that rarely warmed anyone but herself. Tiffany Caldwell was a creature of privilege, her every whim catered to, her every desire instantly fulfilled. She moved through the grand halls with an air of entitled grace, her expensive clothes rustling, her laughter, when it came, often sharp and unfeeling. She saw the world as her personal stage, and everyone else as background actors, easily dismissed, easily forgotten. Her superficiality was a thick cloak, shielding her from anything resembling genuine human connection or empathy for those who served her. Working tirelessly within the vastness of the Caldwell estate were people like Maria, a woman whose hands knew the feel of every polished surface and whose heart was as warm as the morning sun. Maria was the maid, a quiet force of diligence and kindness, moving through the house with an efficiency born of long practice. Her daughter, Elena, often accompanied her after school, a small, thoughtful girl with eyes that missed nothing. Elena wasn't loud or demanding. She was an observer, intelligent and artistic, her mind always busy with thoughts and images. Their existence within the estate was a humble one, almost invisible to Tiffany, who rarely acknowledged their presence beyond a dismissive glance or a curt instruction. For them, the mansion was a workplace, a means to an end, a stark reminder of the social chasm that separated them from the Caldwells. The estate, already a hive of activity, was now buzzing with an even greater sense of purpose. Preparations were in full swing for Mr. Caldwell's annual charity gala, an event that drew the elite from all corners of the country. It was a night of dazzling display, of hushed conversations and clinking champagne glasses, a showcase of power and philanthropy. For the staff, however, it was a source of immense stress, a logistical nightmare of endless tasks and impossible demands. Every detail had to be perfect, every surface gleaming, every flower in its place. The pressure mounted with each passing day, turning the usually quiet grandeur of the mansion into a whirlwind of controlled chaos. Amidst this flurry of activity, Elena moved with her usual quiet grace, her eyes taking in the beauty around her. She had a secret passion, a hidden world of creativity that she nurtured in the quiet corners of the estate when her mother was busy. Elena loved to draw, to sketch the intricate patterns of the antique rugs, the delicate curves of the ornate furniture, the play of light through the tall windows. She also loved to craft, to take discarded bits and pieces and transform them into something new and beautiful. She saw beauty in the overlooked, in the forgotten, in the things that others deemed worthless. Mr. Caldwell, though distant, had always been kind to her mother, a quiet, almost imperceptible kindness that Elena had noticed. It was this small, consistent gesture that sparked an idea in her mind. She wanted to create something meaningful for him, a gift that came from her heart, a tribute to the man who, despite his immense wealth and reclusive nature, had shown her mother a flicker of humanity. One afternoon, a sharp, unpleasant incident highlighted Tiffany's true nature. Maria was carefully polishing a priceless antique vase when Tiffany swept into the room, her phone pressed to her ear, complaining loudly to a friend about some trivial inconvenience. She bumped into Maria, not hard enough to cause a fall, but enough to make the maid stumble. The vase swayed precariously. Maria, startled, managed to steady it just in time, her heart pounding. Tiffany barely glanced at her, her eyes still fixed on some distant, self-important thought. "Watch where you're going, Maria," she snapped, her voice laced with an irritation that had nothing to do with the maid. "Can't you see I'm busy?" She didn't wait for a response, didn't offer an apology, simply continued her conversation, oblivious to the near disaster and the quiet dignity of the woman she had just dismissed. It was a small moment, easily forgotten by Tiffany, but it etched itself into Elena's memory, a stark illustration of the gulf between their worlds and a clear foreshadowing of the kind of conflict that might arise from such a character. Elena spent weeks working on her secret project, a dedication born from a pure heart and a keen eye. Every spare moment she had, tucked away in her small room or a quiet corner of the vast, echoing mansion, was devoted to it. She collected discarded items, bits of cardboard from delivery boxes, shiny wrappers from candy Tiffany had thrown away, even tiny, forgotten buttons and threads. Her goal was ambitious, a miniature replica of a specific part of the Caldwell estate. It wasn't the grand ballroom or the sprawling manicured gardens that caught her attention. Instead, Elena focused on a small, almost hidden alcove near the back of the property, a secluded spot behind an old stone wall, overgrown with ivy, where a single gnarled oak tree stood. Beneath the oak, a weathered stone bench, chipped and stained, offered a quiet retreat. Most people, even those who lived on the estate, likely never noticed it, or if they did, they saw only neglected decay. But Elena saw beauty there, a quiet dignity in its forgotten state. She remembered once seeing Mr. Caldwell sitting on that very bench, deep in thought, looking uncharacteristically peaceful. It was a memory that stayed with her. Her small hands worked with incredible precision, cutting and shaping, gluing and painting with water-thinned acrylics saved from an old-school art kit. The miniature oak tree was made from twisted wire and dyed cotton, the ivy from tiny green fabric scraps. The stone bench was a perfectly proportioned piece of painted cardboard, etched to mimic the cracks of real stone. It was a labor of love, a testament to her patience and her unique ability to find value in the discarded. She envisioned it as a surprise for Mr. Caldwell, a way to show her appreciation for his quiet kindness to her mother. Maria, her mother, eventually found Elena hunched over her work one evening. She saw the intricate details, the painstaking effort, and a wave of mixed emotions washed over her. Pride swelled in her chest. Her daughter was so talented, so thoughtful. But beneath the pride was a cold knot of fear. She knew Tiffany, knew the Caldwell's world, and she understood the unspoken rules. A gift from a maid's daughter, especially one so humble in its materials, would likely be met with ridicule, not appreciation. "Elena, my love," Maria began softly, her voice barely a whisper. "What is this you're making?" Elena looked up, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. It's for Mr. Caldwell, Mama. It's the old bench by the oak tree. I saw him there once, and it looked so peaceful. Maria's heart sank. She tried to gently dissuade her. It's beautiful, truly. But maybe it's not the right kind of gift for someone like Mr. Caldwell. People at the gala, they expect different things, expensive things. She didn't want to crush Elena's spirit, but she also couldn't bear the thought of her daughter being hurt. She knew the sting of Tiffany's casual cruelty, but Elena was firm, her young face set with determination. It's from my heart, Mama. That's what matters, isn't it? He was kind to you. I want to be kind to him. Her conviction was unwavering. She saw Mr. Caldwell not as a distant billionaire, but as a man who deserved a genuine gesture. Her pure intentions were unclouded by any understanding of social hierarchy or the cynical expectations of the wealthy. Maria, seeing the resolve in her daughter's eyes, knew it was useless to argue further. She simply hugged Elena tightly, a silent prayer forming on her lips that her daughter's innocence wouldn't be shattered. The night of the gala arrived like a dazzling, roaring beast. The Caldwell estate, already magnificent, was transformed into an ethereal wonderland. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto polished marble floors, reflecting an endless array of expensive gowns and tailored suits. The air hummed with hushed conversations, the clinking of delicate silverware, and the soft strains of a live orchestra. Every corner exuded immense wealth and an almost arrogant display of extravagance. Elena, dressed in her best simple, hand-me-down dress that Maria had carefully mended and pressed, felt a mix of awe and nervousness. The sheer scale of the event was overwhelming, a stark contrast to her quiet world of crafting. She clutched her carefully wrapped gift, a small, unassuming package tied with a piece of plain twine, feeling it grow heavier with each passing minute. During a brief lull in the swirling crowd, as Mr. Caldwell stood near the grand fireplace, briefly unattended, Elena saw her chance. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she pushed through a small gap in the guests. Maria watching from a distance, her hands clasped tightly together in front of her apron. Elena walked up to Mr. Caldwell, her small figure almost swallowed by the grandeur of the room. She held out the package, her voice a little shaky. "Mr. Caldwell, this is for you." Just as Mr. Caldwell turned, a flicker of surprise on his face at the small girl addressing him, Tiffany appeared. She had been circulating among her friends, a glass of champagne in her hand, her laughter echoing a little too loudly. She spotted Elena, her eyes narrowing at the sight of the maid's daughter daring to approach her father. Tiffany's gaze fell upon the crudely wrapped package in Elena's hands. A smirk twisted her lips. "What is this?" she drawled, her voice carrying over the polite hum of conversation. "Did you bring him a leftover sandwich, little maid? Or perhaps a new dust rag?" Her laughter, sharp and derisive, cut through the air, drawing the attention of several nearby guests. She didn't just laugh, she made a spectacle of it, pointing at Elena with a theatrical flourish, her eyes glinting with malicious amusement. The sound was loud, designed to humiliate, and it landed squarely on Elena, making her small frame flinch. Mr. Caldwell, who had been about to take the small package from Elena, paused. He looked from his daughter's sneering face to Elena's downcast one, a flicker of confusion crossing his features. The sudden shift in atmosphere, from the usual polite murmur of the gala to Tiffany's piercing laughter, had caught him off guard. He wasn't quite sure what was happening, only that his daughter was making a scene, and a small trembling girl was at the center of it. He watched as Elena's small shoulders hunched, her grip tightening on the simple package, as if it were a shield against Tiffany's cruel words. Elena's cheeks burned crimson. The humiliation washed over her like a cold wave, stinging her eyes and tightening her throat. She had wanted to give a gift, a small token of gratitude, and now she was a spectacle, an object of ridicule. Tears welled up, blurring the opulent room around her. She could feel the stares of the guests, their curiosity now tinged with judgment, or perhaps pity. All she wanted was for the floor to open up and swallow her whole, to disappear from the harsh spotlight Tiffany had cast upon her. The carefully crafted gift, meant to bring a smile, now felt like a heavy burden, a symbol of her misplaced hope. She clutched it tighter, wishing she had never approached him, wishing she had listened to her mother. Maria, who had been watching from a small distance, felt a sharp pang in her chest. Her heart ached for her daughter. She saw Elena's face crumple, the bright hope in her eyes replaced by shame. Without a second thought, Maria began to move, pushing through a small group of guests. Her protective instinct, fierce and unwavering, took over. She was ready to step in front of Elena, to shield her from Tiffany's unkindness, even if it meant risking her own job. What did it matter if she lost her position? Her daughter's dignity was far more important. She would face Tiffany, Mr. Caldwell, or anyone else who dared to hurt her child. But before Maria could reach them, Mr. Caldwell's voice, though quiet, cut through the lingering echoes of Tiffany's laughter. It wasn't loud, but it carried a weight, an unshakable authority that demanded attention. He turned his gaze from Elena to Tiffany, his eyes narrowing slightly. The usual detached calm he maintained was gone, replaced by an unexpected intensity that made Tiffany falter mid-smirk. "Tiffany," he said, his voice low but firm, "that is enough." The words were simple, but the tone left no room for argument. Tiffany, momentarily stunned by her father's unusual severity, closed her mouth, though a defiant pout remained on her lips. She hadn't expected him to defend the maid's daughter. Mr. Caldwell then turned back to Elena. His expression softened slightly, though the intensity remained in his eyes. "Elena," he said, his voice gentler now, "please let me see your gift." He extended a hand, not reaching for the package directly, but offering a gesture of invitation. Elena, still trembling, slowly lifted her head. She looked at Mr. Caldwell, then back at the small wrapped item in her hands. The tears still clung to her eyelashes, but the direct request, devoid of judgment, gave her a tiny flicker of courage. Slowly, carefully, her fingers fumbling a little, Elena began to unwrap the package. The plain twine came undone, then the simple brown paper, revealing the meticulously crafted object within. The guests, who had been momentarily silenced by Mr. Caldwell's rebuke to Tiffany, now watched with a renewed, albeit different, curiosity. The drama had shifted from Tiffany's cruelty to the mystery of the small gift. Whispers, softer this time, rippled through the crowd. What could a maid's daughter possibly give a billionaire? Was it some kind of joke, or something truly special? As the last piece of paper fell away, Elena held out the small, intricate replica. It was a miniature, perfectly detailed model of the old, forgotten gazebo nestled in the far corner of the estate gardens, near the crumbling stone wall. It was made from bits of wood, small pebbles, and dried leaves, all carefully glued and assembled, painted with soft, muted colors. The tiny weathered roof, the delicate, almost invisible railings, even the miniature climbing roses that once adorned its sides were there, crafted with painstaking accuracy. Mr. Caldwell took the miniature gazebo from Elena's trembling hands. As his eyes fell upon it, his expression changed dramatically. The initial confusion, the slight irritation at Tiffany's behavior, all vanished. His eyes widened, fixing on the miniature structure with an intensity that surprised everyone, including Tiffany. A gasp, quiet and involuntary, escaped his lips. His jaw tightened, and a look of profound surprise, almost disbelief, washed over his face. He didn't laugh, as Tiffany had expected. He didn't even smile. Instead, he froze, his gaze locked on the small handmade gift, as if he had just seen a ghost from a long-forgotten past. The opulent room, the glittering guests, even Tiffany's simmering resentment, all faded into the background for him. He was completely absorbed, lost in the small, carefully crafted world Elena had presented to him. It was clear this was not just any gift. It was something deeply personal, something that had touched a chord no one, not even Tiffany, had known existed within the reclusive billionaire. Mr. Caldwell stared at the miniature gazebo, his fingers tracing the tiny rough-hewn pillars. It wasn't just a replica. It was the replica of that gazebo, the one hidden behind overgrown hedges, barely visible from the main house, a place almost everyone had forgotten. This wasn't some grand, obvious landmark of the estate. This was his secret place, a sanctuary from a childhood that was often more lonely than luxurious. He saw the faint, faded blue paint on the tiny roof, exactly as it had been before the weather had stripped it away completely. He saw the small broken step at the entrance, a detail so minute, so specific, that it sent a jolt through him. His mind reeled back, not just years, but decades. He was a small boy again, no older than Elena, maybe even younger. He remembered escaping to that very gazebo, a book clutched in his hands, seeking refuge from the stern expectations of his father, the distant elegance of his mother. It was where he'd read adventure stories, where he'd dreamed of building empires, far away from the stifling formality of the mansion. He remembered a specific afternoon, a summer storm rolling in, and the comfort of the gazebo's shelter as rain lashed against the leaves. He'd carved his initials, along with a tiny heart-shaped symbol, into one of the wooden posts, a detail so personal, so deeply buried in his past that he hadn't thought of it in years. And now, meticulously crafted into the miniature, was a tiny, almost invisible etching on one of the pillars, his initials and the small heart. Elena couldn't have known this detail unless she had spent considerable time studying the old, forgotten structure, time that no one else had bothered to dedicate. This wasn't just a model of a building, it was a fragment of his soul, perfectly rendered. The specific detail Elena had chosen, the forgotten gazebo with its hidden carvings, was something that most people, even those who had lived on the estate for years, would completely overlook. Tiffany, for instance, had probably never set foot near it, let alone noticed its decaying beauty or the stories it held. For her, it was just an old, useless structure. But for Mr. Caldwell, it was a repository of memories, a silent witness to his formative years. He ran a thumb over the tiny rough surface of the miniature, the texture surprisingly familiar. He could almost feel the worn wood of the actual gazebo beneath his touch. The sheer observation, the quiet dedication it must have taken for Elena to notice and recreate such a personal, almost invisible detail, was staggering. It spoke of a sensitivity, a depth of understanding that he rarely encountered. Tiffany, who had been simmering in quiet frustration, now watched her father with open bewilderment. His face, usually a mask of calm, businesslike composure, was etched with something she couldn't quite place. A mix of wonder, melancholy, and a deep, unexpected emotion. Her initial amusement had curdled into confusion, then a sour resentment. She had expected him to scoff, to perhaps offer a polite but dismissive thank you. Not this. Not this intense, almost reverent silence. Her laughter, which had been so loud and derisive moments ago, had died completely, replaced by a scowl that deepened with each passing second of her father's silent contemplation. She felt a vague, unsettling fear that she didn't understand what was happening, a fear that perhaps she had misjudged something important. Maria, standing a little behind Elena, watched her daughter and Mr. Caldwell with bated breath. She had seen Elena painstakingly craft the miniature, seen her spend hours in the overgrown corner of the garden, sketching and measuring. She had wondered why Elena chose that particular, run-down structure over the grand fountains or the perfectly manicured rose gardens. Now, seeing Mr. Caldwell's reaction, Maria began to understand. Elena hadn't just made a gift. She had uncovered a hidden piece of his past, a forgotten part of his story. Her heart swelled with a mixture of pride and a dawning realization of the profound impact her daughter's simple, heartfelt gesture was having. Still holding the miniature, Mr. Caldwell slowly lifted his gaze from the gazebo to Elena. His eyes, though still holding that faraway look, were now softer, warmer. He looked at the small girl, her face still streaked with tears, her eyes wide with apprehension. "Elena," he said, his voice a low rumble, filled with an emotion that was completely foreign to most of the guests. "Why this?" He gestured faintly with the miniature. "Why the old gazebo?" It wasn't a question of judgment, but of genuine, deep curiosity, a desire to understand how she had seen what no one else had. Elena hesitated for a moment, looking from the miniature in Mr. Caldwell's hand to his softened face. Her voice was small at first, still a little shaky from the earlier humiliation, but as she spoke, a quiet confidence seemed to grow within her. "Because it was always quiet there," she began, her eyes finding his. "The other parts of the garden are so grand, so perfect, and everyone walks through them. But the gazebo, it felt peaceful, hidden, like a secret place." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I used to sit there sometimes when Mama was busy. I liked to draw the carvings. They looked like old stories, even if I didn't know what they meant." She pointed a tiny finger at the miniature. "And the way the light came through the broken roof, it made patterns on the floor. It was beautiful, even if it was old. It felt like it had a lot of memories." There was no pretense in her words, no hidden agenda, just the simple, unfiltered observation of a child who found beauty in forgotten places. She wasn't trying to impress him. She was just sharing what she saw and felt. "I thought maybe you liked quiet places too." Mr. Caldwell listened to her, his gaze unwavering. Each word Elena spoke seemed to resonate deep within him, stirring emotions he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years, perhaps decades. He remembered those broken patterns of light, the way the silence of the gazebo had been a refuge from the pressures of his childhood, from a demanding father and a socialite mother who valued appearances above all else. Elena, with her innocent eyes and pure heart, had seen past the decay and found the very essence of what that place had meant to him. She hadn't seen a run-down structure. She had seen its soul. He reflected on his own life, a life built on immense wealth and power, yet often devoid of genuine connection. He had chased success, built an empire, but in doing so, he had walled himself off from the simple joys and profound meanings that Elena so effortlessly perceived. His world was one of transactions, of carefully calculated risks and rewards, of social obligations and strategic alliances. Elena's gift was none of those things. It was an offering of pure spirit, untainted by expectation or gain. It was a mirror reflecting a part of himself he had long forgotten, a part he hadn't realized was missing until now. He glanced briefly at Tiffany, who stood a few feet away, her arms crossed, her face a mask of barely concealed irritation. She was beautiful, poised, and utterly blind to the profound moment unfolding before her. All she saw was a maid's daughter, a crude gift, and her father's inexplicable attention. He saw the contrast starkly. Elena's gift, made from scraps and love, held more value than all the diamonds Tiffany wore. His daughter had been raised in luxury, given every advantage, yet she lacked the very thing Elena possessed in abundance: a discerning eye for true beauty and a heart full of empathy. He recognized the emptiness at the core of Tiffany's pursuit of superficiality, an emptiness he, in his own way, had also cultivated. A hush had fallen over the gala guests. The initial ripple of whispers and titters had died down, replaced by a collective sense of wonder. They watched Mr. Caldwell, a man known for his impenetrable demeanor, as he stood there, openly moved by a child's simple explanation. Some of the attendees, those with a bit more insight, began to understand. This wasn't just about a gift. It was about a revelation. It was about seeing the world through different eyes, about valuing what truly matters. The air in the grand ballroom, usually filled with the clinking of glasses and polite chatter, was thick with unspoken understanding. Tiffany, however, felt none of this. Her discomfort grew with every passing second her father's attention remained fixed on Elena. The spotlight, which she always assumed was hers by right, had been stolen by a maid's daughter and a piece of junk. She shifted her weight, fidgeted with her necklace, her jaw tight. She couldn't comprehend what her father saw in that little girl or her pathetic gift. All she knew was that she was being ignored, and worse, she felt foolish for her earlier outburst. The humiliation she had tried to inflict on Elena had somehow boomeranged back onto her. She wanted to scream, to stamp her foot, to demand that her father return to his senses. Mr. Caldwell slowly knelt down, bringing himself to Elena's eye level. He still held the miniature, cradling it gently. He looked into her eyes, which were now wide, with a mixture of hope and trepidation. A profound decision was forming in his mind, a realization that had been slowly building since the moment he first saw the small, handcrafted gazebo. This little girl, with her pure heart and keen observation, had shown him more about himself and the true meaning of value than anyone else in his life. He knew with absolute certainty that he could not let this moment pass without acting. He saw not just a talented child, but a potential, a spark of genuine human goodness that needed to be nurtured. He knew he had to do something, not just for Elena, but for himself, to reclaim a piece of humanity he had lost along the way. Mr. Caldwell stood up, the miniature gazebo still held carefully in his hand. He took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping across the hushed ballroom, past the curious faces of his guests, and finally resting on Tiffany, whose furious expression showed she understood nothing. He cleared his throat, and the low murmur that had just begun to rise died away completely. Every eye was on him. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Caldwell's voice was calm, but it carried an unexpected weight, cutting through the opulent air of the room. "We gather here tonight, as we do every year, to celebrate philanthropy, to acknowledge the importance of giving back. We talk about grand gestures, about large sums of money, about the impact we can make on the world. He paused, looking down at the small, handmade gift. But sometimes, the most profound lessons, the most significant acts of generosity, come in the smallest packages. He raised the miniature gazebo slightly, allowing everyone to see it. This, he continued, his voice softer now, is a gift from Elena. A gift made with incredible talent, with meticulous care, and with a heart as pure as any I have ever encountered. He looked directly at Elena, who stood wide-eyed beside her mother Maria. Elena's cheeks were still a little red from her earlier embarrassment, but a small, hopeful smile played on her lips. Elena has reminded me tonight that true value isn't always measured in dollars or grandiosity. It's found in observation, in thoughtfulness, in creating something beautiful simply because you see beauty. A ripple of quiet applause started, tentative at first, then growing stronger as the guests processed his words. They looked at Elena, no longer seeing just a maid's daughter, but the recipient of Mr. Caldwell's rare and genuine admiration. Maria, standing a little behind Elena, felt a wave of emotions wash over her. Pride swelled in her chest, so powerful it almost brought tears to her eyes. Her daughter, her quiet, artistic Elena, was being honored by Mr. Caldwell himself, in front of all these important people. The fear she had carried all evening, the apprehension about Tiffany's reaction, melted away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of relief and joy. Tiffany, on the other hand, felt a hot flush creep up her neck. Her father's words were a direct, public slap in the face. Every compliment he gave Elena felt like an insult aimed squarely at her. He was praising a child who made things from rubbish, a child from the staff quarters, over his own daughter. She felt exposed, humiliated, and utterly furious. She had imagined this night ending with her father praising her, perhaps for her organizational skills or her choice of dress. Instead, she was being lectured, subtly but unmistakably, about values she didn't possess, all because of that thing and that girl. Mr. Caldwell stepped closer to Elena and Maria. Elena, your gift has touched me deeply. It's a reminder of a forgotten part of my own history, a place of quiet reflection. Your artistry and your kind heart are truly exceptional. He then turned to Maria. Maria, you have raised a remarkable daughter. You should be incredibly proud. The applause grew louder, a genuine expression of respect and appreciation from the guests. Many of them, tired of the usual superficiality of such events, found Mr. Caldwell's sincere words refreshing. The atmosphere in the ballroom had shifted from one of detached elegance to something warmer, more human. Tiffany couldn't take it anymore. The stares, the quiet murmurs, the applause for Elena. It was all too much. She felt a burning sensation behind her eyes, a mixture of anger and a strange, unfamiliar hurt. She had never been so thoroughly upstaged, so completely dismissed. Without a word, she spun on her heel, her silk gown rustling loudly, and strode purposefully towards the nearest exit. Her high heels clicked sharply on the marble floor, each step an angry punctuation mark. A few heads turned to watch her abrupt departure, and a new wave of whispers followed her. Whispers she imagined were full of judgment. She didn't care. She just needed to get out. Mr. Caldwell watched her go, a sigh escaping his lips. He knew this would happen, but he also knew it needed to be said. He had indulged Tiffany's superficiality for too long, and it was time for her to face the consequences of her behavior. He turned back to Elena and Maria, a gentle smile on his face. Elena, he said, his voice kind. I would be honored if you and your mother would join me for breakfast tomorrow morning. I'd like to discuss your future, and perhaps how we can nurture your extraordinary talent." He made it sound like a simple request, but in the context of their lives, it was an invitation that promised to change everything. Elena's eyes widened further, and she instinctively looked at her mother, who nodded, a look of profound gratitude on her face. Maria knew this was more than just breakfast. It was a lifeline, a recognition of Elena's worth, and a chance for a future she could only have dreamed of. She felt a surge of hope, a lightness she hadn't felt in years. This wealthy man, often distant and reserved, was offering her daughter a genuine opportunity, not out of charity, but out of true appreciation. The next morning, the grand estate felt strangely quiet after the gala's commotion. Tiffany, still seething from the previous night's public humiliation, waited for her father in his study. Her anger had simmered all night, turning into a bitter resentment. When Mr. Caldwell finally entered, his face was calm, almost serene, a stark contrast to her own turbulent emotions. "Father, how could you?" Tiffany burst out, her voice tight with indignation. "You made a fool of me, in front of everyone. For that maid's daughter, and her ridiculous little trinket." Mr. Caldwell walked to his large mahogany desk, picking up Elena's miniature replica that sat proudly on a corner. He held it gently, tracing its delicate outlines with a finger. "Tiffany, I did not make a fool of you. Your own actions did that. My words were simply a reflection of what was evident to everyone in that room." "Evident? What was evident was that you chose to praise a child from the staff over your own flesh and blood. You sided with them." Xingyi retorted, her voice rising. He looked at her, his gaze steady and unwavering. "I sided with truth and genuine sentiment. Elena's gift, humble as it may seem to you, came from a place of pure observation and a kind heart. It spoke to me in a way none of the expensive, impersonal gifts from our guests ever could. It reminded me of values I seem to have forgotten, and values you, my dear, have yet to learn." Tiffany scoffed. "Values? What are you talking about? I threw a perfectly respectable gala. I organize these events. I manage the social calendar. I keep up appearances. Isn't that what matters?" "Appearances, Tiffany, are fleeting. What truly matters is character, kindness, empathy, humility, observation. These are the things that build a meaningful life, not just a wealthy one. Last night, Elena demonstrated all of those qualities. You, on the other hand, displayed arrogance and cruelty." He placed the miniature back on the desk. "You mocked a child for her sincere effort. That is not behavior I will tolerate." Tiffany felt a cold dread creep in. Her father had never spoken to her with such directness, such disappointment. He had always been distant, yes, but never openly critical. "Are you punishing me, Father?" she asked, a hint of fear in her voice. "I'm trying to teach you, Tiffany. I have allowed you to live a life of unchecked privilege, and it has made you blind to the world around you. You see people as extensions of your own desires, not as individuals with their own worth." He paused, looking at her intently. "Until you understand that, until you show genuine respect for others, regardless of their station, there will be consequences. I expect you to reflect on your behavior, and for the foreseeable future, your allowance will be significantly reduced. You will also begin volunteering at one of the charities that Elena's gift will now help fund. Perhaps seeing the real impact of generosity will open your eyes." Tiffany's jaw dropped. Reduced allowance? Volunteering? This was unprecedented. She started to protest, but her father raised a hand. My decision is final. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a breakfast appointment. Meanwhile, in a sunlit corner of the estate's more modest breakfast nook, Elena and Maria waited, a mix of nervousness and excitement bubbling between them. Mr. Caldwell arrived shortly, a warm, genuine smile on his face that Elena had never seen directed at her before. Good morning, Elena, Maria, he greeted them, pulling out a chair. Thank you for joining me. Maria, ever respectful, spoke first. Mr. Caldwell, thank you so much for this invitation. It means the world to us. He waved his hand gently. No, Maria. The gratitude is mine. Elena, your gift. It truly touched me. That little garden, the one you recreated, was where my mother taught me to read. It was a place of peace, and after she passed, I let it fall into disrepair, almost forgetting it existed. You brought it back to life for me. Elena, her heart swelling with pride, simply said, It was very beautiful, Mr. Caldwell. I like to sit there sometimes and draw. And you saw its beauty where others, including myself, did not. That is a rare talent, Elena, and it shouldn't go to waste. He leaned forward slightly. I want to help you nurture that talent. I would like to offer you a full scholarship to any school you wish, from now through university. And if you choose to pursue art, I will ensure you have the best resources and mentors available. Maria gasped, tears welling in her eyes. It was an offer beyond their wildest dreams. Elena's eyes widened, a mixture of disbelief and pure joy. Really, Mr. Caldwell? You would do that? Absolutely, Elena. You have a gift, and I have the means to help you. Share it with the world. But more than that, you have a good heart. That is priceless. He looked at Maria. And Maria, you will continue to work here for as long as you wish, but your focus will be on ensuring Elena has everything she needs to thrive. Your wages will be increased, and I want you to feel secure, knowing your daughter's future is bright. Maria, overwhelmed, could only nod, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Thank you so much. Elena, though still a child, understood the weight of this offer. It wasn't just about money or education. It was about recognition, validation, and a chance to truly be herself. She accepted the offer with a humble nod and a heartfelt, "Thank you." As the days turned into weeks, Tiffany found herself increasingly isolated. Her usual circle of friends, who thrived on gossip and superficiality, slowly distanced themselves. Her father's decision to cut her allowance and make her volunteer at a soup kitchen was a shock to her system. She tried to complain, to rally support, but her father's resolve was firm. He even had a quiet word with some of her friends' parents, subtly hinting at the kind of behavior he was no longer condoning. Tiffany was left to face the consequences of her actions alone, forced to confront a reality far removed from her gilded cage. Meanwhile, Elena, with Mr. Caldwell's quiet support, embarked on her new path. She started attending a prestigious art academy in the city, her natural talent blossoming under professional guidance. She remained the same kind, observant girl, never forgetting where she came from, or the unexpected generosity that had changed her life. Her art, now more refined, still carried the raw honesty and heartfelt connection that had first captivated Mr. Caldwell. It was a new beginning, not just for Elena, but for the Caldwell estate, which slowly began to shed some of its cold, impersonal veneer. Touched by the warmth of a little girl's pure heart and a billionaire's unexpected change of perspective. Years turned into decades, each one marking Elena's steady rise in the art world. She became known not just for her technical skill, but for the profound emotional depth within her creations. Her sculptures, often incorporating reclaimed materials, spoke of resilience and the hidden beauty in the overlooked. Her paintings, vibrant with color and intricate detail, captured moments of quiet observation, much like her childhood gift to Mr. Caldwell. Elena never forgot the small, forgotten garden that had started it all. She used her art as a bridge, connecting people to stories, to nature, and to the often unseen struggles and triumphs of everyday life. Her exhibitions drew crowds, and her pieces were sought after by collectors around the globe. But she remained grounded, her spirit as pure as the day she presented her humble gift. She often funded scholarships for young artists from disadvantaged backgrounds, ensuring that talent, no matter where it originated, had a chance to flourish. She built community art centers, places where creativity was nurtured, echoing the quiet support she herself had received. Mr. Caldwell, profoundly affected by Elena's pure act of kindness, had indeed transformed. He became a different kind of billionaire. His reclusive nature softened, replaced by a genuine engagement with the world. He channeled his vast wealth not just into grand philanthropic gestures, but into more personal, impactful changes. The Caldwell Foundation, once a formal entity, became a driving force for educational reform and environmental conservation, areas close to Elena's heart. He often consulted with Elena, valuing her perspective and her innate ability to see beyond the superficial. Their relationship evolved into a deep, unspoken bond of mutual respect. He found a renewed sense of purpose, a connection to humanity he had long lost. The estate, once a symbol of his isolation, became a vibrant hub of activity, hosting charity events, art workshops, and even a small community garden, maintained by local volunteers. He was no longer just a name whispered in awe, but a man respected for his wisdom and his genuine compassion. Tiffany's path, however, remained a rocky one. The forced volunteering at the soup kitchen had been a jarring experience, but not quite the transformative one her father had hoped for. She had gone through the motions, resentful and disengaged. The cut allowance had forced her to confront some financial realities, but instead of inspiring humility, it had bred a deeper sense of bitterness. She struggled to maintain her opulent lifestyle without her father's unlimited funds, alienating her remaining friends with constant complaints and demands. She tried her hand at various ventures, none of which lasted, as she lacked the discipline and genuine interest to see them through. She married, divorced, and moved between circles, always chasing a fleeting sense of importance that never quite materialized. She remained trapped in a cycle of superficiality, forever seeking external validation that Elena had found within herself. While she never truly faced abject poverty, her life lacked the richness and fulfillment that Elena had built from genuine connection and purpose. She occasionally saw news reports of Elena's success, and each time, a flicker of something unreadable, perhaps envy, perhaps regret, crossed her face, quickly replaced by a dismissive shrug. Elena's original miniature gift, the tiny, meticulously crafted replica of the forgotten garden, remained a cherished possession of Mr. Caldwell. It sat on his desk, a constant, tangible reminder of the day a maid's daughter, with nothing but a pure heart and keen eyes, had taught him the most profound lesson of his life. It was a small, unassuming object, but its impact had been immeasurable. It represented a turning point, not just for him, but for everyone whose lives he touched thereafter. The story of Elena and Mr. Caldwell echoed through the years, a quiet legend whispered among those who knew them. It was a testament to the enduring power of genuine human connection, a profound illustration that true kindness transcends all social barriers. It underscored the invaluable worth of a gift given from the heart, unburdened by expectation or status. The tale served as a powerful reminder that true wealth was not measured in possessions or bank accounts, but in character, compassion, and the ability to see and nurture the beauty in others. Elena's legacy was not just her art, but the ripple effect of her pure intentions, proving that even the smallest act of genuine thoughtfulness could transform lives, mend spirits, and leave a lasting mark on the world, far beyond the walls of any grand estate.